It is time, all my friends. Welcome for the live author chats. And we're being graced by the presence of a familiar face. Scott Ryan is our host. Hello, Scott. How are you?
Oh, I'm so well. Thanks for having me as always. It's my favorite event of the year.
I'm going to be talking to you about your books at the very, very end. I think we've carved out just enough time. We're running just a little bit behind schedule, but that's okay because we have James Curtis with us. He is our brand new producer. Hi, how you doing, James?
Hello. How is everyone?
I like to think you're the Paul Schaefer to my David Letterman.
That's exactly how I like to think of myself as well.
Understand.
Just like a really good sidekick, not ever the main character.
I like it.
All right, guys. I tell you what, I'm going to blow this popsicle stand because Michael Hingson is standing by and he's going to be chatting. He just did that wonderful conversation. Really quick, I want to remind people, we got lots of fun stuff in the big bundle of books giveaway. This has got lion's mane mushrooms. I'm pretty sure that's the only reason it's opening up my flow state right now. We also have plenty of books in there, like this one from Doug Carey. There's art and so much more. You still have time. Sign up in the big bundle of books giveaway. Winners announced at the end. My friends, Scott, James, please take it away.
All right. We're excited to be here. I know, James, you wanted to start off by talking about women's basketball. Is that true?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Both of us are very familiar with sports, so we just want to kick right off.
Extra sporty.
Yeah. No, I was thinking that this is all just top of the dome, I was thinking we could start maybe with Michael Hingson.
Oh my gosh, I love this idea. People haven't seen him in a while. Let's bring him on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he was just on. He's a congenitally blind author and survivor of the Twin Towers attacks. He's going to join us to carry on the conversation from his Trust, Triumph, and Thunderdog conversation with us. And answer some questions about his very powerful story. And I am adding him to the stage. Hello, Michael. How are you doing today?
Doing well. And first of all, go Caitlin Clark.
There we go. Of course.
Yes.
I was going to wear my Caitlin Clark women's basketball player shirt.
And the last I heard on the news, tickets were going for the women's games in the $2,360 range and men $1,001. So yes, the women are definitely out scoring the men by far, and that's a good thing.
Yes, that is my favorite thing about women. I am very much so a fan of that element. I just cannot make myself follow any sport.
I mean, I say for that fee, I'm going to expect Taylor Swift to sing Shake It Off. So that's all I'm going to say.
Anyway.
So, Michael, thank you so much for joining us. For those who maybe missed your talk, give us a recap of this incredible book that you've put together.
Well, Thunderdog, the story of a blind man, his guide dog, and the triumph of trust at Ground Zero, tells my story growing up as well as the story of being in the World Trade Center on September 11th. I was the Mid-Atlantic region sales manager for a computer company and had spent a lot of time preparing for the possibility of an emergency, partly because there had been an attack in 1993, but also it's my nature to, when I'm somewhere, especially for a period of time, I will work to prepare. I learn where all the emergency exits are. I learn what the evacuation procedures are. I learn how to get around the whole complex. So as I love to tell people, you could drug me in 5 seconds after I woke up, I'd know exactly where I was in the building. But I needed to make those preparations because I was the leader of an office. And I couldn't rely on reading signs, nor could I rely on other people reading signs and give me information, because after the fact, that doesn't necessarily make sense. So I needed to know what to do as the leader of an office so that I could make sure all of our guests and even employees got out, because employees typically who could see, read signs, don't really learn all the information in advance. So having done all that, a mindset kicked in on September 11th that I didn't even realize until much later, that basically said, you got this. And the other part about it was I had a colleague in the office who looked out the window after the plane hit the building and started yelling, "Oh my God, there's fire and smoke above us, and there are millions of pieces of paper falling outside the windows." And I knew that there were pieces of paper, although I didn't know it was pieces of paper until he explained it, but I heard things falling outside the window. But the issue was he kept saying, "We got to get out of here." And I kept saying, "No, slow down. No, we got to get out of here right now. The building's on fire. Slow down." And finally, he used what I call the big line. "You don't understand. You can't see it." Yeah, right. The problem wasn't what I didn't understand, however, it was what he didn't understand because he wasn't seeing it. That was I had a dog sitting
Mhm.
next to me, wagging her tail, going, "Who the heck woke me up?" And the bottom line is that told me that whatever was going on wasn't such an imminent threat that we couldn't try to evacuate in an orderly way. And we talk about all that in Thunderdog. But what I realized much later was having created that mindset, and then people started asking me to come and speak and talk about my experiences as well as lessons we should learn from September 11th and other things that I hadn't taught people about the issues that they could invoke to learn how to control fear. And so during the pandemic, I began writing a book with a colleague, Carrie Wyatt Kent, and we wrote Live Like a Guide Dog, True Stories from a Blind Man, His Dogs, and his dogs about being brave, overcoming adversity, and walking in faith. And that book, which will be published in August, is available for pre-order now. And that book really will help people learn that they don't need to be, as I would say it, blinded by fear. They don't need to be controlled by fear. I'm not saying don't be afraid. I'm saying use fear as a powerful tool. So we'll teach people how to do that in the book.
Yeah.
So on that day, would you say that you had less fear because in life you sort of learned to maybe be used to being uncomfortable than everyone else around you? I mean, I know it's hard to compare fear between people on such a day, but what would you say about that?
I wouldn't say less fear, but I learned how to use fear as a powerful tool, to use it to help me observe and stay alert. And that's the issue. As I said, it isn't about not being afraid, but rather using the fear that you have in a positive way. That is something that we all can learn to do. Fear is a physical reaction in part, and it's a psychological thing. But in both cases, even if there's a physical reaction, somebody said yesterday to me, I have fear every time I'm in my house, and if I hear a gunshot outside my window, I'm going to jump. And I say, of course you are. But the issue isn't that. The issue is then what do you do about it? And so it isn't being less afraid. It is using your fear and using your brain and your mind muscle to learn that you can control that fear to be a more positive tool for you.
We have a question from the audience. They want to know, do you still experience trauma from this event?
I wouldn't say so. Look, I think that the issue of the World Trade Center, for example, is this. We had no control over it happening. What we do have total and absolute control over is how we deal with what happened. And so it occurred. There were a lot of things that happened. I was 100 yards away from Tower 2 when it collapsed and so on. But I've also spent a lot of time talking to people about the World Trade Center terrorist attacks. As I tell people, ironically, so many questions from the media, some dumb, some really smart, but and so on, made me think about it a lot and continues to make me think about it a lot. So for me, it isn't a trauma issue. It is something that I remember. It is something, though, that I have to deal with how I respond to it. And that's something that all of us have to address. We didn't have control over it happening, but we have total control over how we decide to deal with it. People have said, well, do you have survivor's guilt? No, I don't, because I didn't really have control over surviving since I chose to leave the complex. But I did choose to leave the complex, and I did choose to run away from Tower 2 collapsing. But again, the issue isn't that. The issue is, what do I do with that? Well, people started asking me to come and speak, and they do today. So literally, I travel the world talking about trust and teamwork, inclusion, the lessons to learn from September 11th. And I chose to use the events of September 11th as a way to teach people and be positive about encouraging them to learn how to move forward from things that may happen to them in their lives.
It's so amazing because that moment has become such a moment of fear for the country and the way we responded. So I love that you're talking about fear in the moment. Someone else, we have another question for you. They want to know some advice from you about somebody who maybe is thinking about adding a service dog to their lives. They don't say for what purpose, but
that's okay. Well, and the issue is if a service dog would be helpful, and they should explore that. Service dogs aren't a panacea. Guide dogs don't lead blind people, for example. The job of a guide dog is to make sure that I walk safely. It's my job to know where to go and how to get there. It's not the dog's job. Other service dogs will help people with balance or help people who may be prone to have seizures to deal with them, or any number of other kinds of different issues. So you need to look at what a service dog can really do for you. It's not a pet. The dog expects you to be the leader of the team, and the dog expects you to give it direction and always will. And so you need to really look at what a service dog will bring to you. And if it will bring something, and sometimes it's companionship, but under the Americans with Disabilities Act, a service dog is a dog that is trained to perform a task, which is why emotional support dogs, as they're called, or comfort dogs, are not service dogs. And unfortunately, too many people try to sneak them on airplanes and so on. But the bottom line is they are not service dogs because they're not trained.
So you don't consider your service dog to be your pet?
Oh, absolutely not. We get along very well. We play together, but it's not a pet. It has a job to do, and I have a job to do. But look at it this way. We're a team. We learn how to be a team together. Dogs do love unconditionally, but they don't trust unconditionally. I have to earn the dog's trust, and the dog has to earn my trust. And so we're a team. We work together, but it's a whole lot different than just being a pet, because we both work together to accomplish a task, and that is to keep me safe when we're traveling.
We have another question that's asking what formats will the book be in? Will it be an audiobook, Kindle, ebook? What can they look for?
Yes to all of that. It will even be in print, in paper. It will be available, and I think you all have the link that you can put up to
it should be on your author page as well.
It should be there. And so people can pre-order, at least right now, the print book, but it will be available in all forms.
Did you do the audiobook yourself?
I did not. It actually hasn't been recorded yet, but I probably won't do it, and that's fine with me.
Mm-hmm. This is an interesting question. It says, is fear related to ego?
It can be, because a lot of times people have egos and they don't really pay attention to things that are around them. They don't really learn to use their mind. They don't learn to analyze what goes on around them. And so having an ego and not paying attention to a lot of things can, in fact, allow fear to take over your life and as I would say, blind you. You become unable to make decisions and move forward. It isn't to say that people can't have any kind of an ego, but you need to really develop the skills and abilities to use fear in a positive, powerful way in your life with whatever goes on around you.
Wow. You did a great job answering that question. I would not know how to answer that question. Yeah. Great job.
Yeah. Now, I have a question too, because you had mentioned before that you've gotten some questions that were really, silly about the whole experience. And then you've gotten some other questions that have been really profound and kind of made you think a lot more. What are some of the things that you have been asked about this experience, or ways that people have kind of approached you about it that stick out to you still today?
Well, more of the dumb questions stick out to me, like a reporter who said, well, what were you doing in the World Trade Center anyway? Well, it's all over print. I was the Mid-Atlantic region sales manager for a computer company. And he goes, well, you couldn't possibly know what happened, of course, because you're blind. You couldn't see it. Excuse me, the airplane hit between the 93rd and 99th floor, so I say the 96th floor, on the north side of Tower 1. I was on the south side on the 78th floor, so roughly 18 floors below where the plane hit. The last time I checked, Superman and X-ray vision were fictitious and were not real. The reality is I didn't know, not because I couldn't see it, being blind. I couldn't see it because there were 18 floors of concrete, steel, and everything else between me and the building, or where the plane hit. And no one, as I was going down the stairs, none of us knew what had actually happened. We figured out an airplane hit the building because we started smelling the fumes from burning jet fuel. And I figured out that it was burning jet fuel because I did a lot of traveling around airports. But the reality is none of us knew what happened. I didn't know what happened for sure until after both towers collapsed and I was able to reach my wife. I had called her just before we left the building, and then I couldn't get her again until after the towers had collapsed. And she's the first one who told us that it was all about terrorist attacks. But no one knew where we were, and couldn't know. It had nothing to do with being blind. But that's what people want to decide, is that blind people are clueless, we're not capable, we're not able to do a lot of things because we can't see. Well, you light-dependent people ought to recognize that the only reason you get around so well is that you have light on demand because Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. But the reality is you are a person, you are people with just as much a disability as I am, but electric lighting covers up your disability for the most part until it doesn't.
I love that way of looking at it. That's incredible. What do you have planned for your future writing and speaking performances?
Well, right now, we're waiting for Live Like a Guide Dog to be published in August. I will be at the Marshfield, Missouri Cherry Blossom Festival in 3 weeks. And then I have a speaking event in Saratoga, New York on the 8th of November, and a couple the rest of the year. Speaking died down a lot during the pandemic, which gave me time to think, which is how Live Like a Guide Dog came about. And I wasn't able to really do a lot of traveling and speaking, even though the pandemic started to lessen a little bit in 2022, because my wife became ill and actually passed on November 12th of 2022. We'd been married 40 years. So lots of memories. Yeah, thank you. Lots of memories, however. So now I'm working at ramping up speaking. So if anybody knows anyone who needs a person to come and speak, love to talk with you about that. People can reach me easily at speaker@michaelhingson.com. So speaker at michaelhingson.com, and would love to to work with you and help any way that I can, and speak and educate and teach people about blindness, about trust and teamwork, inclusion, and such things.
For me personally, I just love that you've taken fear and you made something positive out of it. And I think that you could inspire kids and, so many places. So I would think people would be wanting you to speak all the time. I mean, it's such an inspiring story.
I hope so. Well, now that the pandemic has opened the opportunities to speak again, I hope people will reach out. And again, speaker@michaelhingson.com. Love to chat with people, love to help in any way that I can and help people learn about the value of inclusion. I also work with a company called Accessibe, ACCESSIBE. And if people visit accessibe.com, they can actually get, if they have a website, an audit, a free audit of their website, and learn just how accessible it is or is not. The internet right now is a place where most websites aren't inclusive or accessible. 97% of the internet websites out there are not accessible and don't have anything on them to make them inclusive or accessible. Accessibe is a way to assist with a lot of that. It's a scalable solution. And if your website has under 1,000 pages, it's only $490 a year. And the reason for doing it is, as the CDC says, up to 25% of all people in the United States have a disability. Do you really want to exclude 25% of all people from your website? Or do you want to open your website and make it more inclusive? And as we know, people who discover a website that they can truly use will also come back to that website because we know how hard it was to find it in the first place. So brand loyalty is important. Again, Accessibe really helps with that.
Well, you're very inspiring. I hope everyone goes and checks out your book. You have an author page through the BookFest that people can find it. It sounds like an incredible story. We want to thank you for spending this time with us. It was really inspiring. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
My
you, Michael.
pleasure.
Yeah, it's been such an honor.
My pleasure. And again, speaker at michaelhingson.com. Love to talk with you.
Yeah,
Well,
thank
we'll
you.
get it done.
Yeah. All right. Have a great day.
Thank you.
All right. Now, we like
That
to
was
think of
amazing.
this as author speed dating. So
Yeah.
let's bring the next contestant in.
Yeah, you bet. Up next, we're going to be continuing on the theme of inclusivity. We've got A.M. Colman, the award-winning author of Love My Hair, and she is going to be talking about the value and importance of books representing children of color, inclusivity, and diversity, and is going to do a little bit of a reading from her book for us. Let me go ahead and add. Hello, A.M.
Hello,
How are you doing
A.M.
today?
How are you?
I think we got you muted right now.
Hi, good to see you. I
Thanks.
love the speed dating term.
Well, I mean, I'm glad that you loved it because we're going to be speed dating here for 10 minutes. So let's start on a high note and, see how it goes from there.
Great,
Yeah.
brilliant.
So,
Okay, well,
go ahead.
I think I was going to read the book first and then, yeah.
All right, we're going to hear a little bit from Love My Hair.
Great, okay.
And
great. So I'm the author. Great, thank you. I'm the author. So I'm just going to read a bit of the book just to give you an idea of what it's about. Hopefully I'll try and hold it up somehow. So it's called Love My Hair. Hi, my name is Leah and I really love my hair, even when it's in a tangle and looks like I don't care. Lucy's hair is really long and looks kind of ginger. Marcus has such tight curls you can wrap them around your finger. Miriam's hair cannot be seen, but I saw it at her house. Philip has a medical problem, so his hair is as short as a mouse. Adiola has her hair in plaits and changes it all the time. Kim's hair is a bit like mine, but it is very fine. Ali's hair grows really fast, so he has it cut a lot. Kevin's hair is really light. He avoids the sun in case it gets too hot. Michael does not like his hair being done, so he changes it all the time. Kajaro loves his short hair and parting and says it looks the best. I have learnt a lot about how different we all are. Every child should know that they are special and that they are a star. I don't have to look like you, and it's okay that you're not like me. My hair is mine and yours is yours, and that's as cool can be. Speed dating and speed reading.
Yay! That was so good. So where did you come up with this idea to start with her hair? And I'm really feeling the top of my forehead, so don't mind me while you answer.
Yeah, so interestingly, and it's probably the same worldwide, when I was growing up, there wasn't diversity in books. I would go to the library a lot, which was 2 minutes from my house. I would watch television, look at billboards and posters, and just did not see myself or diverse communities at all. So even from a young child, I was thinking about the fact that, why can't I see myself in books? And actually, I remembered I started making books and selling to stapled them together. And I was selling them to my friends. And I remember my mum telling me off and saying, I don't want these parents coming knocking at my door saying, your daughter is selling books to my child for 20p. So it was, yeah. So it was always there. I always had this desire to have put books out there. And then I remember it's really interesting when people start secondary school. I don't know if it's the same in America, but children look a certain way. They're completely independent and they do their own thing. And then suddenly they start secondary school We call it secondary school here in the UK. So they start secondary school at sort of 12, 13. And suddenly there becomes this kind of culture of we have our hair like this and you should look like this. And my youngest sister, she would just be completely, no, this is how I look fine, I look great, and I'm not changing it. And she was just completely confident about the way she looked and had no intentions of changing it to look like anybody else. So I kind of use that as the sort of title grabber for the book, because the book, as you saw very quickly, really focuses on the fact that we look really different, that we have different skills and abilities, and that actually that's fantastic and it should be celebrated. So the inspiration actually came from my sister, whose name is also Leah, who's the main character in the book. So that's where it came from.
What kind of feedback are you getting from this book? Because I would think that there are so many parents out there that this is soothing their child with this inclusiveness.
Yeah, it's incredible. I do lots of events, and I remember doing one event, and a lady opposite had a stool, and she was just staring. So I was thinking, okay, what's going on here? So when it quietened down, I said to her, "Are you okay? Is there something?" And she said, "I'm just listening to the people talking to you. I just can't get over what people are saying." She said, "It's just incredible and inspiring." And actually, it's amazing, the conversations I have. So not just from parents with children, but I had a lady who came and bought the book, and she was in her 30s, 40s. And I said, "Oh, are you buying it for your friend's child or something?" She said, No, I'm buying it for me. And I said, "Oh, okay, well, that's nice." And she said, she had ginger, really gorgeous curly red hair. And she said, "I've never seen myself in a book ever. And I'm buying this book for myself." And that is the story over and over again. I've had lots of men with no hair showing their foreheads, just coming and they just came and sat, and they're saying, "Oh my goodness, you've got a child in the book with no hair." And then just hearing stories. I had this guy's story about, he said he didn't want to leave his house for like 4 years when he started going bald, because his hair was everything. And suddenly he just couldn't acclimatize. So I've had amazing conversations with people about their hair and about their identity and their skin tone. And one of the things I do is I have skin tone coloring pencils. And again, people scream when they see, "Oh my goodness, I can actually have, my child can color in the actual skin tone. They don't have a choice of 2 colors." So it's a really powerful book. And I go into schools, and it's great being able to, in the book, girls are playing football and boys are cooking, and I say, "Oh, do girls play football?" And they're all going, yeah, and again, it's just the book challenging all of those stereotypes that we just automatically presume you can do this and you can do this, and just recognizing how much opportunity we should all have, and the fact that we should all be seen.
Who did the pictures? Did you illustrate it as well, or?
No, so I had a wonderful illustrator. I've got a fantastic guy called Russ who does the illustrations. He's amazing, and I'm sure like all authors, I'm really, really fussy about the pictures. So I kept sending them, "Can you put a piece of hair here, please? Can you put a piece?" And he was just so patient. And that's another thing, people really comment about the illustrations. So I'm really glad that I took that time and spent so long trying to get it absolutely right, because that really has had an impact. So yeah.
We have 2 questions. They're pretty much both the same, and they're both wondering, is this a series? Will there be a second book? What are you thinking about?
People are clamoring for more.
Yeah. So I've got about 5 books in the process.
Wow.
So I have an affirmations coloring book which is already out, and again that just focuses again on helping children to identify those things that they're really good at. So the affirmations coloring book is available now. But yes, there are 5 books that are due to come out. Hopefully 2 of them this year. So you can follow us on Instagram or on the website to see when they get released.
And I would think this would be a hard book to be out there if you have a bad hair day. Like you got to spend extra time on your hair before you go out. Am I right?
No, because you don't. So you look great. No, because that's the great thing about the book. The diversity in the book. There's a boy in there with really messy hair. So when I go into schools, children go, "That's me. I don't want my hair done." No. So there's a real diversity in the book. So no, you don't have to look perfect.
Well, good. I'm going to tell my mom.
Good.
All that time when she was telling me that I needed to comb that hair, I didn't have to. So tell people where they can get your book, where they can follow you and be inspired by all of this.
Right. So we have a website, which is www.angelbooks.net. And we're on Instagram, which is angelbooks2018. So it's Angelbooks 2018. That's us on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and all the other social medias. But do follow us on Instagram, because we post lots of things on Instagram about what we're doing and where we are. And people have traveled to come and see me, so to get their author signed copies of books and things. So so come and find us and follow us, but also go to the website, which is angelbooks.net.
Well,
Awesome.
Thank you so much. I love this book. I'm so glad you read to us. That was fun.
Yeah, great. Thank you for the invite. Great speed dating.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
All right. Have a
Ding.
good All right. I mean, I felt like there was a connection, but I feel like we should continue.
Right. Yeah, we got to keep looking. We're not done.
Got to keep going. Yeah.
Sure.
Up next on our speed dating is going to be Amy L. Bernstein. She is the author of Wrangling the Doubt Monster and is going to reveal her deepest doubts and ask others to bravely share their own as part of an inspiring conversation around creativity. So I'm going to go ahead and add you onto the stage. Hello, Amy.
Hello,
Welcome.
Amy. Thanks for joining us.
Oh,
We're not hearing you quite
don't
yet.
hear your mic right now.
Let's get your mic in there, because, we don't want for people to doubt what you're saying. We want to be sure that we hear that. Go ahead, try. It might be on her end, because she's not.
It's the actual mic.
I think it's your mic might be out.
If you want to go ahead and maybe try...
just unplug that and just try your regular computer and see if that works. Because it looks like it's out there. Just pull it out and try. Not hearing you yet, but it's on mute now. So unmute her. Can you unmute her?
No, it doesn't look like a mic is connected. Amy, go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and remove you from the stage, and maybe we can go ahead and roll on to our next one. If you don't mind, maybe just logging off and plugging in the microphone and then logging back in, we can get you next and switch out.
Yeah, we're not hearing you yet, but that's okay. This is it's creating drama. We want to know. What we were going to have this doubtful conversation, and now we're going to move on.
I'm going to insert my nose into this really quick. Amy, when you back out, you can check your mic in that staging area. Do that.
And see if it works.
And if it doesn't work, then call Dave, our engineer behind the scenes. Sound like a plan?
We got you up next. Let me go ahead and remove you from the stage, and
we're adaptable.
Yeah,
bring them in, bring them out. This is what we're looking for.
Exactly,
this is what we want to have.
Exactly,
we want to have some excitement. Let's bring our next contestant on.
Let's roll on through to Dennis J. Peterson. He is a U.S. Navy Reserve officer who's going to discuss the history and importance of the NATO phonetic alphabet and share some samples from his new children's guide, Alpha Bravo Charlie. How's it going today, Dennis? I almost just called you Dennis.
If you buy the book, you can call me whatever you want.
Now that is an author. That's
sure.
the answer of an author.
Well, hey, thank y'all so much for having me. I was going to start by giving just a little bit of a background about myself. So
Please
I live
do.
I live in the greater Washington, D.C. area with my wife, Megan, and two amazing kids, Anne and Joe. Joe turns 7 years old tomorrow, so happy birthday, buddy. I've worked for the federal government in some way, shape, or form for pretty much my whole career. I started as a congressional staffer, which is a lot of fun but stressful because you can be fired by the voters every 2 years. About 10 years ago, I went over to the Department of Defense, where I write reports on major overseas operations, currently working on Ukraine. And as you mentioned, joined the Navy Reserve in 2019. So between the day job and the reserve duty, I've had a lot of opportunities to work with some really phenomenal military service members and veterans. And if you've ever been around anybody who's worked in that world, they very much speak their own language, much of which is not appropriate for a children's book. But part of that language is the absolute ubiquitousness of the NATO phonetic alphabet. You know, if I'm at work and I have to spell something for somebody, it is Alpha Bravo Charlie. If you say A as an apple, B as in boy, they look at you like you're an idiot. It's like you got a math problem wrong or something. So that kind of gave me the idea to come up with this book. And you might be wondering, you know, why is that such a hard, fast thing, right? Like who came up with this? Why is Q for Quebec rather than Queen? Why is M for Mike rather than Mancy? X-ray, you kind of only had two options. It was going to be X-ray, xylophone were the only two options for X. But you know, where'd this all come from, right? So in the intro to the book, I actually explain that it goes back to the early days of radio communication. And when they first started talking over radios, they learned kind of an annoying quirk about our alphabet, which is that so many letters sound the same, B, C, D, E, G, P. So if you're talking over static, they all sound almost identical. So if you're a pilot requesting vectors or a soldier calling in coordinates from the battlefield, right, you can't be making mistakes. You need to get your message across. So they started substituting words for different letters. But everyone kind of had their own system, and it was kind of a chaotic mess. So by the 1950s, you had the International Civil Aviation Organization did this elaborate testing about which words could be most clearly distinguished over poor broadcast signals. And they had different speakers from different nationalities to see which words were most comprehensible. And they came up with this universal alphabet, which the NATO alliance adopted. And that's kind of what gave it its name. So this is still very much in use today. It's something that every single soldier, sailor, airman, marine has to learn at basic training. And kind of funny story about that, when I was going through Navy officer training, that's actually when I was working on this book. And at one point, one of my classmates asked me, hey, have you memorized the NATO alphabet yet? And I said, truthfully, I've written the book on the NATO alphabet.
So you call the NATO alphabet, but not all countries in NATO have English as a primary language, but they all use this anyway?
Mm-hmm. It's just the words, the way that they sound, the way they hit their ear makes them distinguishable. And actually for our non-English speaking allies, especially France, technically Alpha is misspelled ALFA, and Juliet has two T's at the end. So you don't have the ambiguity for non-English speakers. I spelled it with a PH because that's how most people spell it, but that's the official way there.
That's so interesting to me because, I mean, I feel like most people hear this in movies who are not in the military. You hear people saying it, but I never did I consider that people in France would be using this and countries like that. I mean, how did everyone agree to do this? I'm sure that's not in your children's book, but I find this so fascinating. I think I've never heard of this before.
Yeah, no, you're getting deep into it. It was because of that testing they did. They wanted to make sure that the words could be very, very clearly distinguished across cultures. It could be pronounced by everybody. And I guess, English kind of being the default language of NATO, let's face it, between the US, UK, and Canada, we went with English words, but yeah, it is used across the alliance as well as for aviation. Pilots across the world use this when they're calling in stuff over the radio. So the book is dedicated to all the military kids out there who support their moms and dads. But if I'm being honest, I really kind of wrote it for the parents, because I think that in some way, all parents want to share some element of their real world life with their kids, right? They want to share some part of what they do. And I think for people who are in the military or police, first responders, anyone in aviation, this is a little piece of your day job or your life out there that you can share with your kids. So I'm hoping that folks have fun with that. Also, as a Navy guy, I had to weave in something nautical here. So at the bottom of every page, I also have the maritime signal flag associated with each letter. I don't know if you guys are familiar with those. You've probably seen them somewhere. Back in the day, ships would use them in the age of sail to communicate over the water. The radio kind of made that obsolete, but they use it now for ceremonial stuff. So on Navy bases and sailing clubs, always a good sign if you see those flags at a seafood restaurant. That usually means you're in for a good time. Okay. So those are in the book as well, and you can learn that as you go through.
And of course, Billy Joel used one on his album Stormfront.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's one of my favorite all-time album covers. Again, off topic, but that's what I'm thinking of. So we have a question that wants to know what kind of feedback you're getting from teachers and educators on how this works for teaching kids the alphabet.
Oh, that's a great question. I haven't gotten too much feedback yet from teachers, but I will say honestly, I was able to use this book to help some of my Navy colleagues learn the alphabet. Because it rhymes, right? I mean, I grew up on Dr. Seuss, so I think all children's books need to rhyme. So that kind of helps. It's a good mnemonic. What's G again? Okay, H is for hotel, a fun vacation stay. Oh, G is for golf, the game Dad likes to play.
Can you spell my name? I'm Scott. So how would you spell my name?
So Sierra Charlie Oscar Tango Tango.
All right, I would like you to call me that from here. Everyone, that's what I want to be known as.
I'm gonna call you Sierra Charlie. You're gonna be Sierra Charlie. How about that?
Sierra Charlie. Yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty cool. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I like it. Got a ring to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the toughest part of putting this book together was the illustrations. I tried illustrating them myself, and it looked like someone got drunk and drew The Simpsons, because that's how I draw. But I worked with an illustrator, and because, as you can probably see, I'm a geography nerd, I wanted really good maps for Quebec and India, Q and I. So for Quebec here, we've got an accurate map of the province with a little, you got a moose wearing a Mountie uniform, which as American, that was the most Canadian thing I could think of. I also had the illustrator work my kids into the book. So here you can see U is for uniform, and you got my daughter Anne here wearing her little American Heritage Girls uniform. And then Y is for Yankee. So my boy Joe there, he's the drummer boy for the Union Army on the Yankee page.
Oh my gosh. So what map is behind you?
That is an antiquated map of the Caribbean, which we just bought it as a wallpaper and put it up during COVID when we started doing Zoom meetings all the time. And I always say I feel like a Caribbean newscaster, like I should be giving the weather for Havana or something.
Oh, I like it. I think this is, I love when someone thinks of something for a children's book that isn't, like go to sleep time or something like that. Like this isn't, because as you said, it's the parent that has to read this book, and I love the concept.
Well, thank you. So, it's on Amazon. Just search for Alpha Bravo Charlie by Dennis Peterson, Accept No Substitutions. That's the cover for you there. It's a great gift for any children in military families. And honestly, if you know someone who's shipping off to boot camp, they're going to have to memorize this, and the rhymes and the pictures can actually be pretty helpful with that.
That sounds incredible. And where can people follow you? Do you have a place for them to follow you as an author, or you just want them to say, forget following you, get right to Amazon? That's what he's really interested in.
It's funny. As a public affairs officer, I kind of feel like the cobbler kids have no shoes. Like I don't have a website. I really should be more of a self-promoter. But I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn. That's about it.
There you go. I love it, because the social
And
media aspect is so hard of being an author. So it's so much better to leave it go. I love it.
yeah.
Well, this is Sierra Charlie Oscar Tango Tango saying, did I do it right? Did I remember it?
You did. Bravo Zulu.
Wow. Signing off. Thank you so much. This was really fascinating.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm not leaving. I'm just going to turn the light on.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just hang out here for a minute. Let me go ahead and
I loved that.
Let's bring Amy back on.
All right, Amy.
I feel like we've already done a great. Let me do just
take two. I hope
we get a take two. Yeah, we can hear you this time.
I love it.
Just to remind anyone who wasn't here 10 minutes ago, Amy is here to talk about wrangling the doubt monster and reveal her deepest doubts and ask others to bravely share their own as well. Hello, Amy. It's so great to have you here. I'm happy that we got
good to hear you.
Right?
Yes.
Exactly. Thank you, James, and thank you, Scott. Or I should call you by your Tango, Bravo.
Yeah, whatever. I'm answering to anything tonight.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the concept of your book and how you stumbled upon this.
Right. So the book is Wrangling the Doubt Monster, Fighting Fears, Finding Inspiration. And my inspiration for this book is that I communicate with writers and authors really all over the world, both as a book coach, as a mentor, as a colleague, as a sympathetic ear, as an author myself. And really, what comes up again and again is writers and creative people are so full of doubt. I live here too. I live in Doubtville as well. And so I wrote a book it's not one of those how-tos. There's lots of great how-to books out there, how to write, how to be a better writer, how to write a scene. This is not that. This is inspiration and encouragement. This is the kind of book that you kind of put on your nightstand or you leave it on your desk and you dip in and out when you really just need that. You need that confident voice, in your ear telling you, yes, you can do this. Yes, you have the talent. Yes, you're creative. Go for it.
That's so beautiful. But it, immediately what you think is, did you have any doubts in doing this book? Like, because that's the thing, like you're saying, I'm going to be the expert on this, but also we all do have inner doubts. So how did you balance that?
Right. So we're living in a meta world, right? It's a meta world and we're just living in it. Absolutely. I mean, I wrote the book, in really, really intense bursts. I was just pulling from something very deep that I think wrestling with my own feelings about feeling doubt as a creative person, dealing with rejection, always wondering whether you're going to succeed in any way. And interestingly, then came time to market the book, right? To try and pitch it to agents and publishers. Well, that's when the doubts just really bubble over, don't they? So of course I had my own doubts on the way to getting my doubt book published, but I do have a wonderful publisher, Bancroft Press, who really believes in the book and commissioned wonderful illustrations and a really sort of playful title. Which you see here. So, we've got a little bit of levity in here amid all that encouragement and inspiration.
So what is step one for, let's say they're too afraid to even put paper to pen, like someone comes to you, let alone someone who has a book and is afraid to go out there. I think a lot of people are afraid just to start. To you, what is step one of conquering that initial doubt that you have an idea for a book?
Right. And Scott, that's a great diagnosis. Doubt gets in the way of people starting an endeavor because they're afraid, because they're already assuming that they will fail, because they're stepping off into the unknown in some fashion, and that's scary. So here's my core thesis. My thesis is that doubt is not something we can totally banish. And anyone who tells you they've banished it, I don't really believe them. But we can manage it. And so what we need to do with doubt, especially doubts about our ability to do something new or take a creative risk, we need to basically see it and acknowledge it for what it is. And then we need to be able to say to ourselves, I'm giving myself permission to try this thing anyway. Yes, I have doubts. I don't know whether I'll succeed, but I want to try and I'm going to go forth and do this thing. And so you have to find a way to let doubt sit there on your shoulder and know that it's there and not let it stop you from making that attempt, because it can stop you but you can also have talks with yourself and dip into this book that I wrote for this purpose, and go forward and take those risks.
All right, now I'm going to flip you on the other side. Those people who have no doubts, that have pure confidence, that's not good either, because you need a little bit of humility. So what is the balance in your opinion? Because you can get someone who's so cocky that
Right.
you're, you know.
Because doubt has protective qualities, right? Doubt can stop us from making a truly bad mistake. I mean, if you're a surgeon, you're going to want to be really clear that you're going to, saw off the correct leg, right? It's good to have doubts and to take a pause and to wait for a minute. So doubt has protective qualities, and doubt can also have us take a pause and think really clearly about, am I going about this the right way, or the best way, or the best way for me, or is this the move that I really want to make? So there can be a reflective and protective quality to it that, we don't want to always leap into everything without thinking it through first, right? But when it comes to doing something really creative, you don't want to let that first thought be your stopping thought. You don't want that thought of, I seriously doubt I've got the ability I seriously doubt I can write a book. I seriously doubt I can paint this picture. I seriously doubt I can bake a cake that will look, Instagrammable. You don't want that to be the stopping point, right? You can acknowledge, what, this is scary, and I have doubts, and I'm going to do it. And I think that people who say, I have no doubts whatsoever, they're not taking that valuable reflective pause to do something differently or better. And I don't think they're being completely honest with themselves, because doubt is a human condition.
How does social media play a part in doubt? Because everyone's putting this fake confidence online, but it's not backed up with what's really going on in their psyche.
Absolutely. And we know that kids are struggling and teens are struggling, and people are in fact putting up what looks like perfection, or they're touting their extraordinary successes, and you want to be like that, and you don't think you ever can. It really is rather poisonous, and I think that we need to see that for what it is. In my Substack newsletter, I write about these issues a lot, about different ways of looking at doubt and kind of addressing it. And in fact, I've been starting to write about envy as sort of like an ugly stepsister of doubt, because, when we're envying others, we're denying ourselves the recognition of what we're good at and how valuable we are. And we're giving away all our power. And social media is just incredibly good at taking away our power. So that's really unfortunate. So social media is something that we need to unplug from often, and remember that that's not anyone's authentic self or life, and we need to be authentic ourselves.
I love that so much. I love that you're saying that and putting it out there, because I feel like it is damaging, especially kids. Like, that's just not how it was for us when we were young.
That's right.
You said that you're an author coach of sorts. Is that what you said? A book coach or an author coach? Tell me what does that mean?
So a book coach is someone who helps another author find their best path to writing and getting published. So I work with mostly, you can work as a book coach with nonfiction, memoir, fiction. I work primarily with nonfiction authors, and I provide very structured guidance, accountability, and encouragement to help them stay on track, to finish a book, to finish an outline, to finish a proposal, and basically sort of march toward that finish line of getting published and finding the best path to getting published. So it's a guide and a very specialized kind of consulting and companionship. You're not writing for them, and you're not necessarily editing. So a book coach deals with the writer in a very holistic sense, the whole person. An editor deals a lot with the text, the words on the page. And that's one way of thinking of the difference.
Oh, you'd be such a good one, because if I said to you, look, I was going to write that, but I was really doubting what I was writing is good, you'd be like, you can't. And here, get a copy of my book. And
I help my clients with doubt all the time. And, we take a step back and we look at what's going so well in their work and in their journey and how much they figured out. And yes, it's hard. Writing is so hard. But book coaches can really help someone get over those difficult humps.
I just love this. I'm gonna call
Yeah.
her. I need to ring her up on my next book here. This is what I need. So
Do
where
it.
can people find you? How can they get your book? Maybe get a coaching session, or just call you when we're feeling down.
I am actually putting amywrites.live in the chat. That is my author website, Amy Writes, AMYWRITES.live. That's how you get on my mailing list to learn about the book, which is coming out in September. And there's a link to my book coaching stuff there. I have a separate book coaching website, which I won't
Sure.
put out now, but you can find me through that link. And listen, I love hearing from authors. I love hearing from aspiring authors. And so if people want to have that conversation, I'm all about it.
I love it. I mean, you're so positive, even just in this, and I love positivity. It's just like what we need to move forward. So please keep sending that out in the world. It makes such a difference.
Thank you, Amy. This is
Thank you both
really
very
great
much.
chat. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
I don't know. Did I ask good questions? I'm doubting myself.
I think,
did I do a good job on that one?
I don't know.
I
Honestly, I would make sure to think about that while you're trying to sleep tonight, like
Okay.
a lot. Just make sure it really takes over. Up next, we've got Kim Langling. She is the #1 top new release author of Paw Prints on the Couch. She is going to join us today to talk about the touching story of adopting Dexter, her rescue dog. I'm going to go ahead and add her to the stage, and I actually have to excuse myself real quick. I'll be right back.
I can take over. Finally, it's just you and me, Kim. It's what we've been waiting for.
I know. I've been waiting with bated breath.
I mean, come on.
Sierra, Charlie, Oscar, Tango.
Oh, yes. It's catching on. I'm finally getting the nickname I always wanted.
I know. And it's so easy and rolls right off the tongue.
Rolls right off. It's perfect. Well, thanks for joining us today, Kim. And I'm already feeling that you're going to have a heartwarming story here. It just has I have a feeling your book's a tearjerker of sorts. Tell us about adopting this new family member.
Well, Dexter, he came into my life after I had to say goodbye to Digger, who had been in my life for 14 years. Mm-hmm. And Digger, in my realm, see, I'm the queen of my realm. And in Digger, in my realm, he was Sir Digger. And so he would always teach his human, which was me, lessons. And we had conversations for years, which I wrote down and shared. And he ended up with a following. And everybody wanted to know what was going on with Digger. And when I had to say goodbye to him, it was really hard. It was very, very difficult. Very difficult. I live with PTSD. And I loved hearing Michael talk earlier about his dog. My dog Digger was not a service dog, but he was a companion dog, but was so in tune with me that he got to the point where he could catch an anxiety attack before I noticed it was coming.
Wow.
So he would come and nudge me and it would refocus, which is what you need to do when you're in the midst of anxiety. Is just one thing that comes along with PTSD. But, and mine was from, an incident that happened while I was serving in the military. So I thanked Dennis for his service as well.
Yeah. Thank you for yours.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. So it all kind of started with Digger, who was a rescue dog. I adopted him from our local humane society here, which is a kill shelter. And so that's why I wanted to go there and save a puppy. So when I had to say goodbye to Digger, it was 6 months. And I thought, I can't do this again. I just can't. But the stories were still in my head. And so I thought, well, why don't I bring some people together and share stories about their pets? And maybe that's going to help me on my little healing journey. And that's actually how my book, Paw Prints on the Couch, came about.
So cute.
I'll hold that up again. Was for, I reached out to other people that had adopted or rescued animals and said, could you please share, or would you like to share their story and how an animal, your particular pet, enriched your life? And that's kind of how the whole Paw Prints on the Couch started. And of course, I had to share my story with Dexter. And Dexter, after 6 months after I had to say goodbye to Digger, I was driving to work one day, And I felt this voice. And I always say I didn't hear it. I felt it. I felt this voice saying, there is a dog out there that needs you. And I was like, oh, no, I can't do it again. I cannot do it again. My heart is still crushed. And it kept coming to me. There's a dog out there that needs you. And I was like, oh. So I got online when I got to work, looked at the local Humane Society where I'd got Digger. And there was one dog, which is completely unheard of for a shelter. There's usually dozens of dogs. There was one dog. And he had a black head, a fawn body, white feet, and a white patch on his chest, one blue eye and one brown eye. Very unique looking dog. And I thought, maybe I'll go meet him. He's pretty unique looking. He might fit in my realm pretty well, you know? So after work, I called and said, can I stop by and meet this young man? He was a stray. They had no background on him. So I got there, and they take you into a visiting room. And it's this little tiny room. And I just sat on the floor, and I thought, if this boy's going to come home with me, he has to choose me, because this is really important. It's for his lifetime that he will become a part of my life. And it's a big commitment. And I want to be able to do right by this animal. So I thought, he's got to choose me. So I went in and I sat on this cold cement floor, and they brought this very skinny, ill, scared dog in. And he didn't want to look at me, and he kept trying to, scratch to the door to get back out. And eventually the volunteer left him with me, and I sat there and I was like, I'm not going to move, not going to say anything. And he just kind of turned and he put his forehead against the door. And I went, oh my gosh, this dog has lost all hope. He wouldn't look at me. It was the saddest thing. It was the saddest thing to see. And I still didn't say anything, didn't move. And I'm like, he's got to choose me. Eventually he got up, real tentative, kind of inching towards me, and he'd sniff and then jump back. And he did that side to side with me for, I don't know how long, 10 minutes maybe. I don't know how long it lasted. But I just kept there, sitting there, and he wouldn't even touch, but he would sniff. And then after a while, he put his nose against my shoulder. So he actually touched me. And I just sat there and looking straight ahead, and I'm like, okay, come on, little guy. You can do it. Mentally, I'm cheering him on. You can do it. You're brave. And he went back and forth a couple more times, sniffed my hands, nudged my shoulder. And then eventually, I honestly don't know how long it was. It was over 10 minutes. Eventually he came, and he's a big dog, by the way. So he sat beside me, and I'm sitting on the floor. So he sat beside me, leaned his whole body against me, and put his chin on my shoulder. And I just barely turned, and that one bright blue eye is staring up at me. And that's when I finally spoke, and I whispered very softly, and I said, well, it looks like you're coming home with me, aren't you? So he chose me. And
that's so sweet.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's one of those times that I'll never forget, because it really was pretty powerful, because watching him be so skittish and afraid. And I just I'm like throwing all these vibes out there that I could, I'm a good person. You're going to be so spoiled if you live with me, all these things. And of course he is spoiled rotten, but I've had him now 5 years, and he is an integral part of my life. He's also my office manager, because I'm an author and a podcast host. So he hangs out in the little futon couch in my office and tells me when it's time for a treat. He also tells me when it's time that we need to go outside, because his mom needs air. So we need to go for a walk. So he keeps me on track and lets me know, when the mailman's here, and, all kinds of things. So he is my office manager. He has his own spot on the website and everything. And he gave the introduction in the book.
Wow. I mean, that a good thing that you found a dog that can write.
That's
that was hard to do.
Look at that. See?
I mean,
he's brilliant. He is brilliant. So
that is so beautiful. Now, does the book just have dogs, or dogs and cats?
There's dogs, cats, and a horse in there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I don't want a horse on my couch. I'm just saying.
I know.
That seems a little bit ridiculous.
Well, they have those tiny little ponies.
A pony is not a horse, but I see what you're saying. So where can people follow you, find your book, and read these inspirational stories about these animals that have helped so many people?
The book is available on Amazon, and it's available in print and in ebook. And yeah, that's the best place. Or you can also go to my website, which is my name, kimlanglingauthor.com. And you can pop on there. You can also request a signed author copy and see what else is coming, because this year, which in August of this year, which is pretty exciting. I'm really excited about it. It's turning into a 3-book series. So Paw Prints on the Couch is out there right now. And the next one that's coming out in August of this year is Paw Prints on the Kitchen Floor. And I've got all kinds of amazing stories that we're putting together, and I'm just getting ready to get it off to the editor here in a couple months. So super excited about that. I love sharing the stories about the animals and how they enrich our lives and how they make our lives better.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. And thanks for using my code name. That makes you super cool.
Hey, no, I did Morse code in the military, so I knew exactly what Dennis was talking about.
There you go.
Thanks so much, Kim. Make sure.
All right. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good pet from us. All right. Let's see what we got next.
Keeping the good times rolling. Up next, we got Michelle Kwasniewski. She is the award-winning author of The Rise and Fall of Danny Trueheart trilogy, a former Hollywood insider, and is going to discuss the good and bad moments from behind the scenes and the enticing trap of fame. Go ahead. I meant to click that a little sooner.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Sierra Charlie, is that what it is?
Oh, my goodness.
I've been watching for quite a while. I am learning so much. And I'm glad I'm not the only writer with doubts, too. So I'm going to be reading that book.
Oh, you can't have doubts. You have a trilogy.
I do, and I'm writing a new book. But you know what? It's the secret no one tells you. They're always there. Lingering, lurking. So, but that's a whole other topic.
So give us the elevator pitch. See, I'm using Hollywood Insider.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So it is The Rise and Fall of Danny Trueheart trilogy shines a spotlight on the dark shadows fame casts on Danny Trueheart, who is a 15-year-old girl who rises to the pinnacle of Taylor Swift type fame, and how it affects her development, her family, her friends. Because basically she's a teenager thrust into the music business. And when you're making millions of dollars, are you really worried about how your teen is developing and growing up morally? So.
Wow, that is very fascinating. And there's that documentary right now on, is it Netflix or Disney? I'm not sure.
I believe it's Netflix. Is it Netflix?
Well, we're not here to.
It's on my to watch list.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either, but I'm just curious for you. Like, that's got to be good for your book because people are getting interested in that, and then you sort of have.
Yeah, it definitely helps. I think that there are so many people that they just don't see past the glitz and the red carpets and like the private jets and everything. And there's a lot of pressure, whether you're an adult or a child. But when you're a child and everyone is counting on you to make millions, are they really going to do what's in your best interest, or they're just to keep you happy, like slap some tape on the problem, some duct tape, and push you out onto the stage so they can keep going? No one has time to deal with mental health. No one wants to worry about you or your education, where you're going to be in 10 years. Will you be able to handle it? They really just want to profit off you. And that is, if hopefully stars have a very firm moral compass, they have parents and guardians who are helping them out, but a lot of times that's not the case.
So what about Danny? How are her parents?
Danny's a little bit of a mixed bag. She's a stage mom and that is actually, I'm writing a prequel about her stage mom because everyone loves to hate the stage mom, Jody. She had dreams and got sidelined with her dreams of stardom, and then pushed all her dreams into her 2 daughters with middling effects. So, and then her father is very standoffish and hands off. He lets the mother run the show. And both really affect Danny and her relationship, not only with their parents, but her ability to relate to other people in her life, within her business world and beyond.
So what is your writing schedule? How, obviously you're dedicated, that you've got a trilogy, you're doing a prequel, you've got all of this. Tell me what your day is. How do you write in a day?
It is, well, normally we're just finishing up spring break now, so there was not a lot of writing on spring break with my son at home. But normally I get everyone out of the house and then I try to write until school pickup time. And then I try to focus on being a parent and, making dinner and all that kind of thing. So I do usually write during the week. And if I'm on a deadline, then I'll take extra time out of the day. But I usually try to write from 2 to 5 hours a day if I can.
And is it hard at night if someone needs to do their homework and you're supposed to be doing that and you're thinking, oh, what if Danny gets cut from the Ellen DeGeneres show?
Yeah, I have fully been driving and missed exits or I've been gone to the supermarket to pick up one thing and I get struck by an idea and I completely leave the supermarket without the one thing I went to get. So I do have that where I will get caught up because I'm not an outliner. So my whole series and the current book I'm writing is completely just in my head at the time. So I do get really caught up in my thoughts. And so everyone who knows me knows if I'm writing a book, I'm a little bit, out there, a little bit, caught up in my thoughts. But that's the writing process that works best for me.
So you don't write your plot down at all?
I'm a full
really
pantser.
Start with a blank page and go from first sentence to last?
I start with either it's a character, like I knew who Danny was and I knew that she had a guardian named Martin and a stage mom and everything else was kind of blurry. And I knew that, and at first I thought this was all going to be one book. And then I was like, good Lord, it's going to be War and Peace. So I had to chop it up into 3 books. And then I knew where I wanted the series to kind of end. But how I got there, I believe it gives me freedom for the characters to make kind of the choices, the mistakes. Mm-hmm. And the more I get to know the characters, the faster the writing grows. So the 3rd book was written in like 12 months. The 1st book, I had committed to being a writer. It was 7 years. So
right, it takes a while. I always feel like when you're in that zone, it's like playing. It's like you've got little action figures and you're sort of playing, and they're saying that. When you write that way, is that how you would describe it, or
that I would agree with that. And I kind of try ideas on, does that work? Does that not work? And I find that a lot of times when I'm having a block, it means I'm trying to jam something that I want. And it sounds totally stupid and new age, but the characters don't want to do that. And when I get out of the way, a lot of times stuff just comes up that I wasn't even expecting. So I try to give the story the freedom to go where it wants to go. And it sounds totally crazy, I know.
No, I mean, I think it's true. I think, or otherwise the book, I always say, then you feel the writer's hand. And the truth is, we shouldn't be thinking about Michelle at all when we're reading this. We're supposed to
100%
get caught up in the story. Who do you think, I know it's everyone who has money, but who do you think this book, as far as, is it for kids or teens? Is it for grown-ups? I mean,
it's listed as YA, but my youngest reader has been, I think, 11. My oldest was my grandma at 97. I have a broad range. It's for anyone who has sung into a shower bottle at the top of their lungs, screamed, at their, windshield, to Metallica or whatever kind of music you're in, because music has just such a force to it. You can't see it, you can't touch it, but it moves everyone. And whether you listen to country or classic or pop, and I love pop, it just, it soothes us. It gets us pumped up. It can calm us down. And that's kind of, I think, the unifying factor in it all. And I think a lot of people, some won't admit it, but a lot of people have always dreamt about what would it be like to either be a famous actor, famous writer, famous celebrity, singer, whatever it is. And so I think that this series touches on those. And I've had a lot of parents, both moms and dads, who really are fascinated with Jodie, the stage mom character, because they can't believe what she's willing to sacrifice to get the fame and fortune that her daughter has. And just, she really sacrifices her daughter's education and emotional and moral development. And there's just, it's just, as a parent, it's kind of like really hard to read. I've gotten a lot of comments where people get very upset with the choices that Jodie has made. But I'm like,
and are people looking at you and your kid and wondering maybe?
Oh God, no, because first of all, there's everyone, I've had that asked before, would I ever want my son to go in the business? Absolutely not. I had a great time working in entertainment. I'm still an active member of the Producers Guild. I love the producers, supported the actors during the strike, the writers during the strike. But it's a business in my opinion, when you're very young and you don't have a family. Because for me, when you go in the business, it's like Vegas. What happens in the business stays in the business. You go hard, you socialize in the business, you work. My longest day was 21 hours. There's a lot of egos that you're juggling, not just in front of the screen, but behind the screen as well, with different producers and directors and everything else too. And you really got to know who you are, and it's emotionally and morally rough. So, and I did it in like the 90s and 2000s. So it was like the whole Me Too thing was happening too. I'm glad I did it. I have great stories, but it was a lot, and I didn't want to keep doing it once I got married and became a mom.
I think that sounds like the right decision. So what's next? Are all 3 books out? Can they get all 3, or and it's really over? Or
all 3 books are out, and that's the thing. All 3 books are out right now, and so this part of the trilogy is done. I'm working on a contemporary novel. It's kind of like a chick lit novel, and then I am going to circle back and go do ideally a trilogy with Jodi's as a teenager, the mom, how she became a stage mom. And then Danny's guardian and talent manager, Martin, he used to be a teen in the 80s pop star. And that's how he's kind of developed her voice, and tell his side of the story. And then also as well, her manager, Jenner, and how he became to be kind of the mercenary producer he is now. Because everyone comes from somewhere. And I think a lot of people don't realize that young adults, it's such a volatile time. You're trying to find your place in society, find your place in your family, and figure out who you are with all the pressure of everyone trying to like mold you or push you in whatever their agenda is. And so I think that a lot of times adults forget just how stressful and upsetting and exciting and exhilarating being a teenager is, because you don't know who you are yet and everything is up for grabs.
Well, it sounds great. Thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you go ahead and tell people where they can start this trilogy at and get 1, 2, and 3.
You can get all the books anywhere online where you buy books: Target, Amazon, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Waterstones, anywhere. I have a website, michellekwasniewski.com. Totally easy to spell. I know, I apologize.
That's fine. Yeah.
But yeah, and I'm on Instagram at author.michellekwaz with 1 L.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to watching your series on Netflix. You know it's going to happen.
I hope. I'm actually pitching it around, so hopefully someone picks it up.
All right, good job.
Thanks.
I mean, to have music in the show, like, let's get this done.
Just realized I was on mute, but it's okay because I said have a great day, and I feel like that's a weird way to say goodbye to. So
I think it's not. You wanted to have a great day. That was kind of.
I do. It's true though. Okay, so up next we've got KT Engelhart. KT is an award-winning author of The Wise One. She's going to share how her high school English teacher helped to spark her fascination with folklore in Ireland, thanks to a mystical encounter of his own. Hello, KT, and welcome. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Hi, KT. I'm fascinated already just with this intro. This sounds amazing. Let's hear
thank
the
you. I hope it lives up to it. Well, I'm actually going to start. I'm going to kind of read a story about a story. So that's how I'm going to segue into it. So here it goes. I'll be reading this section, so excuse my gaze. In the 7th grade, rumors floated around of Mr. O'Neill's famous leprechaun story. It was controversial, unbelievable. All morning, our class buzzed with excitement, much to our homeroom teacher's annoyance. English class was next, right before lunch, and we couldn't wait. Entering class, Mr. O'Neill seemed unusually cheerful. As a teacher, he was fair but firm, and rowdiness was not tolerated. That day, we aimed to please. When I was just a lad living in Ireland, he began, and we were hooked, because Ireland was a distant realm of emerald hills, funny accents, and fairy folklore. We were spellbound as Mr. O'Neill depicted his childhood home with longing. His nostalgic narration instantly transported us, which is what made us believe him even more as the story deepened. Suddenly, we found ourselves following him through a hidden tunnel he and his friends had stumbled upon one day as they played in the fields, like they did every day after school. Young John O'Neill heard the distinct sound of small mischievous voices as he crawled through. And as I reached out, Mr. O'Neill said, then paused abruptly as the bell rang. It was lunchtime. We protested. We wanted closure. What happened? Like, seriously, what happened? But Mr. O'Neill's knowing smile confirmed what I'd suspected all along. There was no ending. It was left to our imagination, challenging us to believe. My world opened up after that. And his story inspired a book I wrote 15 years later, and it's called The Wise One.
Wow. Well, what do you mean there's no ending? I know I'm hooked. I was like, what?
I
They reached out
know.
and then she does it to us.
I know. And it wasn't fair at the time.
Now
but
I have to go to Ireland.
You do, honestly. Everyone does. So, I mean, I've always been captivated by shows like Charmed and like books like Inkheart and Chronicles of Narnia and Harry Potter. And thanks to Mr. O'Neill, I've known since age 13 that I want to visit Ireland. And then by extension, Scotland, because like Harry Potter pinpointed me to those places as a must-see destination. So The Wise One's magic unfolds. It's the folklore of Ireland, and the sequel, The Twin Flame, transports readers to Scotland, a place I've now been to 3 times.
Oh, wow.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love that it was a teacher that inspired you to do this. I think that is so important. I had an English teacher, Mrs. Whetstone, that I always give credit to because I wrote my first novel when I was 16 and gave it to her. And I'm sure it was horrible, but she didn't treat me like it was horrible. She treated it like it was good, and that makes a difference. Does that teacher know about your book?
He does. When I got it published, I actually mailed it to him with a note and I signed it and everything. And his wife, seeing that it was a book written by one of his ex-students, I filmed him opening it up and everything. So that really made my day, honestly. And I haven't told him about this because I was like, if I know he's watching, I'm just going to start crying. So I'm just not going to do this. And maybe I'll send it to him later. But my point to this, as much as it is a lot about like Mr. O'Neill's inspiration, I feel like much to like Amy's point to earlier when she's talking about self-doubt and that stuff, I wanna just like bring us back to like our curiosities and our passions that we have as kids and as teenagers. Like right now, we're just like so inundated with social media and we're comparing ourselves all the time. So I really want to say like the lesson here for me and what I'm going to continue to do is just go back to the stuff that brings me so much joy. And it is those things. It's folklore and magic and the mysteries of like these gorgeous landscapes that are completely unbelievable. Like you don't even imagine that they exist in our real world. So, yeah.
Well, and what I would say off that from your beginning is we have this moment where we need to know everything. Like if I say, oh, who did direct Charmed? And I don't know, it'd be fine. Let's go on. But you're going to get your phone out and look it up and find who did it because we got to know everything. And I love that your story doesn't have an ending. Your ending is a thought. That is the ending and the journey. That's so exciting.
Yeah, honestly. Well, are you saying my story, my book?
Your story, yeah, like what you just set up there.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's like a story about his story. Yes, this one does have an ending. The Wise One has an ending.
Well, no, I understand, but I'm saying you're bringing us to this place that is this long journey from you as a kid because we don't have an ending. You and I aren't let's not have an ending today. We're going on this journey and you went to Scotland. Now you're going here. You know what I'm saying? That's what I mean. Like it's the unending journey that we're all on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless I messed up what you're, but that's
that's very profound. And that's perfect. I was just like, oh, wait a minute. I don't want people to think I didn't write an ending to my book.
No. I didn't. I know. Of course, your book has an ending. You don't want to give all that away because they're going to buy the book. That's what we're here to do. We're here to move copies. But I just love this. It feels to me like your curiosity is what's feeding you as an author.
Absolutely. And like what we were saying earlier, was what Michelle was saying too, just like she lets her characters talk to her. And Stephen King does the same thing. Like he will not outline. He'll just be like, I'm following this person. We're going to see how it goes. He's like, I think he said something about Salem's Lot. Like, I think, we're going to favor the protagonist here. Like it won't end in total like massacre or whatever. And then like it steered him another way or a super dark path. So I love that she's inspired by her characters and she listens to them. And Michelle, and Stephen King. And I try to do the same. I loosely outline so that I can just follow along on the journey and see what they're saying to me, see where my curiosity leads me. So a lot of the time I'm researching something. So I heavily research the folklore and the places where I'm writing about. And like something, I'll uncover something and it's completely fascinating, and I'm like, well, this is going in the book, and that can happen in the middle of the writing process.
So what is your process for actually writing? Do you need to be in, because I feel like I just want to imagine that you're in the hills of Ireland of writing these things. But I mean, where do you need to be to write, and what's your process?
I think at one point in the writing process, I kind of spoil myself. Like, I did go to Scotland recently to write a chunk of my third book because I needed to just get out of my city head here, sort of. But otherwise, I'm in my living room and I'm just like tapping away. But yes, I would love to have stayed. I stayed like a week in the winter, but ideally that would be great if I could leave for 6 months at a time and be like, I'll see you later with a full manuscript. But
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to ask, can you give an example of some of the things that you came across that you were like, this has to go in the book?
Oh man.
Now, obviously you can't give away what happens in the book.
No, that's no problem. There was a story our tour guide told us of the Old Man of Storr, which is like a really iconic kind of rock formation that is in the Isle of Skye. And it was like a heartbreaking tale, and it's called The Brownie and the Broken Heart. That's the story. That's the folklore like associated with it. And it's like, it looks kind of like an old man and then like a stumped figure next to him. And it's like a story of friendship and love and that kind of thing. And I was just like, oh my God, I have to. So things like that, I get pulled in, and it's just so full of heart. And I try to keep that human connection, human aspect in my stories. Like, I try not to, like, as much as trends are great, I'm a bit old school. I like things that have that running theme of friendship and like, remind people that we're human and like, we're not perfect and that sort of thing. So, yeah.
All right. Well, I think we should be best friends. That's up to you. I'm liking everything you're saying because I'm so sick of AI, and I'm sick of anything that isn't human, and technology makes me want to vomit, and I'm just feeling like...
Oh yeah, half the time I want to throw this down like some sort of river.
I hate
I'm
it. My dream is to sell enough books that I can throw my phone away and be like, forget all y'all.
So JD Salinger's not.
Right. Except now KT, who we're going to be best friends now. Sorry, everyone else.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, good. Well, tell everyone where they can get your books and where they can follow you.
Sure.
And then on social media, which we love.
I know. Oh my gosh. Yes, do follow me. I'm trying to make an effort. KTEngelhardt.com is where you can get more information and sign up to my newsletter. And you can get my books pretty much any major bookstore as well as Amazon.
Well, that sounds wonderful. And as always, when you can, get it from an independent bookstore, because we want those places to stay alive. And I feel like that's where you got to buy KT's book. It just feels right to me.
I mean, wherever your heart takes you.
Of course. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, KT.
I loved it.
Right.
We're just crushing it. How can we almost be done? I feel like we're just getting started.
I know. You think like maybe we should just take a break and like maybe breathe for a bit and
wait keep them going. I say bring two on.
Let's keep going. Okay, all right. Yeah, that's fine. All right. Well, up next, let's do one at a time.
Okay.
We promised everyone one at a time.
Mr. Conventional.
Up next, we've got Becca Fox. Becca is the author of the BookFest award-winning series Chosen by the Masters, and will be sharing tips on how to create realistic relationships in fiction. Hello, Becca. How are you today? Oh, it looks like you're on mute right now. Hold on. I can do it. I gotcha.
There we go. I got it. Sorry about that. I was listening to KT and I didn't want anything to interrupt, so I was like,
thank you for joining us today, and congratulations on winning the BookFest award. That's so exciting.
Thank you.
Give us a little information about your book.
Wow. Okay. So it's actually a series, but the most recent one that I wrote is actually the prequel, and introduces the main character and her journey. And the characters in the rest of the series are all kind of like side characters, but at the last book is where they're all going to come together and they're all going to, you know, save the world. But it's kind of like gaslit fantasy, so it's set in a world of my own making, but it's definitely in an older time period with swords and, you know, those pistols and kind of Pirates of the Caribbean, Jane Austen-esque.
That's incredible. I love this idea that you say your main character comes in the third book. That's so cool, because I love those kind of things where it sounds to me like you want to build this whole world, and that's when we really lose ourselves in art. I'm interested about you saying that there's, you know, you have advice for how to create good characters, which is of course the key. So what do you got?
Well, because I have several books that I've written, and they're all kind of in different genres. And people are like, is there anything that's connecting them? Like, is there any common factor? And I'm like, well, yeah, they all have a romance arc. And someone kind of challenged me, and they were like, well, why is that? Why do they all have a romance arc? And I'm like, well, because it's fun to write, but also because I feel like when you tell someone, oh yeah, I write romance, you know, usually they have a bit of a mixed, you know, reaction. Some people just kind of roll their eyes, and other people are like, oh, okay, tell me more about that. And it's true. I feel like romance does get kind of a bad reputation in the reader community, just because there's some claims that that's shallow, that, you know, that steamy scenes are used in place of strong storytelling, that sometimes the main conflict just revolves around the hookup, and then after the hookup, it's like the story's basically over. Like, we don't really care what happens afterward. So I kind of set out to try and deviate from that and kind of show a more realistic view, at least from my point of view. I am married. I've been for 8 years. So I know a little bit about that kind of thing. But I do think it's important that they're portrayed in a realistic sense, because I guess it's technically fiction. So we all think, oh, it's fantasy, it's not real. But at the same time, what you consume is something, it's what you start to believe after a certain period of time. So I do want to, especially for younger readers, I do want, like the young adults, I do want them to be able to see a more realistic view, so they can set up those realistic expectations going into adulthood and into relationships and stuff like that. But also, there is a generation of people, you know, in their 30s who are still reading young adult books, because they feel like the romance is handled so much better in those. I was at a local convention, and I was talking to an author recently, and she said it so well. She said, young adult fiction focuses more on the journey of the characters, and if sex is mentioned at all, it's usually done with so much more tact and discretion, and it's not the focal point of the story. And I was just saying that, I'm like, yeah, no, that's perfect, that's spot on, which is kind of sad, but that's just the way it is. I mean, there's usually there is an audience for that kind of stuff, but there's also an audience that is looking for, as I said, more realistic portrayals. So I'm hoping to provide that audience with more good books to read. And that was a really long spiel.
No, it wasn't long. It was fascinating. I'm going to put you on the spot. Have you watched Heartstopper by any chance?
I have not, no.
Okay, then we'll move on. It's fine. You might want to check it out, because what you're talking about is very much like the TV show Heartstopper, but it's fine. I just took a chance there. So how do you balance that in your story then? Because you've brought up, you know, when a relationship is consummated, look at how tactful he is. A couple times that it begs me to ask the question, how, as a writer, are you balancing that? Because people do want that in a romance, like that is the... But also, I always think of Friends. Why is he just talking about TV? But I always cared more about Monica and Chandler than I did Ross and Rachel. But we saw Monica and Chandler get together as a couple. That's more interesting. How about that?
Yes, for sure.
No, reference that I won't.
That's okay. I got it. I got the reference. Okay. So it works. Yeah, no, I was thinking about that for a while. I was like, okay, how can we break this down and make it real practical? I do think that creating a really good external conflict to focus on as well is key, so that, as I said, there is still a story after the hookup happens. You still care to know what happens next, even though, okay, they're already together. Now what? Well, if there's a good form of external conflict to kind of push them either forward or back. Sometimes they can hold each other back, right? That's really important, but also focusing more on the characters and wanting to make them as flawed as beautifully flawed as possible. Just because I do feel like as a writer, it's so much, there's a temptation to make the main character like this person that we want to look up to, we want to admire, and we make them a little too perfect, which is it ruins the rest of the story, because someone who's too perfect has no conflict, and without conflict there's no story. So just really want to encourage authors out there to focus on that as well. But same with the love interest, there's that temptation to make them just this beautiful thing, this perfect untouchable thing, and it's like make sure that they have interesting flaws, that they have trauma, that they have some inner goal that drives them, and make it slightly more important than them just getting together. Because that's like I said, that's realistic. Nobody's life revolves solely around their significant other. They have other interests. So make the story about those too.
Yeah. Right. I love that. And I love how thoughtful you are in thinking of these things, because it is frustrating when you watch something or read something that you're just not, if you're not feeling something with the character, what does it matter what the plot is?
That's so true.
So how many books are you thinking of doing in this story? You're saying they're all going to come together in the end? So what's your plan?
Well, right now we have 5 out. I'm going to get 1 more out, and then I'm going to be done. Or at least I'm hoping so. Although I'm looking at it's funny, I was listening to the other authors, and they said that they plot loosely. And I'm like, yeah, I plot loosely as well. But I just started writing this, and I'm thinking, I think this is also going to be another War and Peace. I might have to break this one up too. So I'm hoping for just 1 more in this series, but it may end up being 2.
Well, you got to go where the story goes.
Yeah, we'll see if for all 10 new books coming out.
Hopefully not that many.
Well, if people want them, what else are you going to do?
Do that.
So where can people find you and be able to get your books and follow you and all that good stuff?
Sure. I'm on beccafoxauthor.com. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff,
And how many of the books are out now? 2 or 3?
So theres 5 actually that are out
All
right now.
5 are out?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Well, there we
go.
go.
You can find them anywhere pretty much.
Well, all right. Just there you go. Look anywhere, and there her books are. They're everywhere.
They are.
In your eyes.
Yes. They're just there. Thank you so much. And also thank you for caring about this kind of stuff and wanting to try to make a little difference in that. I love that so much. I like that you have a plan for that. It makes me happy. So thank you for that.
Oh,
yeah, thank you, Becca.
Guys. Appreciate your time.
Oh, anytime. I think any time was worse than your have a nice day.
Yeah.
I just said anytime. We can't do this anytime. This is a special event.
Right here. We'll meet up with you.
Yeah, I don't know. I think your have a nice day was better than any time, but what are you gonna do?
That's true, yeah. I guess mine's a little bit more pertinent.
Yeah.
Okay, so up next we are going to be talking with Stephanie Dooley. Stephanie is the author of several series. I tried to count them for the description and I could not, so I just wrote several series, standalone novels, and short stories. She's going to be sharing her 10 secrets for new writers they are not going to be able to hear elsewhere, along with some highly impactful insider information. Stephanie, I am excited for you to live up to the hype. How are you today?
Yeah, you didn't set the bar very high now, did you? Secrets, huh?
And I'm gonna derail everything and say she wins for best background.
Oh,
I agree. Yeah,
I mean,
I feel like I'm underwater.
Or what?
No, this is where the writing magic happens.
I mean, that is the most beautiful. Look at me! I've got a white wall that I just schlepped a poster up 2 seconds before, and she has this beautiful. I mean, it's all color coded. I know this is not the point. Take that minute out of my time.
You're fine. You're fine. I appreciate you. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Well,
Yeah,
anyway.
for me, it's all about atmosphere. So I have to have that to write. And
It's so beautiful.
yeah.
I mean, can I come over and write my next book in there? I mean, what the heck?
Absolutely.
Who's gonna rent it
Absolutely.
out? But I need these 10 secrets.
Okay. All
I got
right.
my
Well,
pen ready to go, and the
yeah.
secrets are gonna be out.
Pens poised, ready to go. Yeah, I hope I live up to the hype. I'm gonna, just to keep me on track, I'll read them. So pardon my gaze here a little bit. But so the first one is, you'll either likely or at least probably will give away your first book. It's and that's a good thing. So don't be discouraged over that. If it's not your first book, at least your first short story, something. As a new writer, you're still gathering your social proof, and so you need to give the readers a gift of kind of that first test drive. And so it gives them that confidence that, yes, this is a writer I think I'm going to like, since you don't have a lot behind you. So that's the first one right off the bat. The next one is to not be overwhelmed. There is more information out there for writers than you can ever digest. It can keep you spinning, so that you're doing more research on how to write than you're actually writing. And so my encouragement is, be sure that you're not doing that. We're writers, and so we need to write as much as we need to develop our craft and see what's out there to do that. Another one that's maybe, I hope these aren't all discouraging. They're not meant to be. But the other one is, you will spend money. You might spend a lot of money especially if you're an indie author. You have the benefit of making more because you don't have the royalties, but the royalty splits. But you're going to spend money. So just make sure, and it kind of ties into the next one, that writing is a business. So be sure you know where all of that's going, and not just for tax reasons. And this is number 4. You know where it's coming, where it's going, where you're spending your time, so that you can plan accordingly. I mean, it's easy to let it all slip away. So a good calendar is always really something you want to keep up with. Number 5, you can be assured that everything will change just about the time you think you've got it all settled, and you know who's who and what's what, and what the trends are. They're all going to shift. So just keep up with them. And I wanted to give just a real quick, and hopefully I'm not going to eat up a lot of time. One of the great places for me to look for is manuscript wishlist.com. And they do a hashtag every February. They do a big splash. These are editors and agents who do kind of their wish list of what they're looking for. And so it gives you a great idea of what trends to look for in the coming year. And so hashtag MSWL. And I would give the NATO alphabet for that, but I can't on the spot. But MSWL is the hashtag, and you can that's for all social media. So you can look and see what editors and agents are looking for. But to me, that's a good way for me to see kind of an idea of what the trends are happening. The other thing that was a hard one for me was embrace tech, or at least make peace with it. There's a lot out there, from platforms to writing software. Most of us don't write on typewriters anymore. I know a lot of us do handwrite, but just make peace with it. Know that the tech's going to change. A mentor of mine, he says, just push the button. And that's one thing I actually have to remind myself. It's not that scary. Just push the button and see what happens. So embrace the tech. Number 7 is show gratitude. This is so important, not because, what you give in, you'll get, which is certainly the case. But we're all part of a community, the BookFest community. I've been watching all day. I've been watching the chat. I mean, this is like one of the most beautiful, supportive groups that I've ever been around. So bravo to all the crew. Very much appreciate being part of this. So just show gratitude, spread the joy, be part of the community of writers, and support each other. Number 8 is everything takes longer than you think. So don't be discouraged when the book is taking not just months, it could take years to get it out, especially if you're trad published. You're on the cruise ship. So you're taking a long time to get to where you need to go. It can be years. And even indie publishers or indie authors, we're in the speedboats, but that doesn't mean that we are not navigating those same waters. So it's a slow process, and so just be prepared for that. Plan accordingly. Not to say that you won't have that fast moving piece of it, but most of the time it's fairly slow moving. Another one, gosh, these aren't all downers.
No, you keep going. These are spectacular.
Oh, I'm glad. Okay. The number 9 is you're not going to pay the bills with your writing. Likely. I mean, there's the breakout novel, right? There's the breakout author, but we can't all be the breakout author. So just don't be discouraged when you're having to look for the side hustle, or keep your day job for a while longer than you think. That's okay, because we're writers, and it is definitely for the love of writing and for seeing the stories out there and getting the stories from our hearts. And so it's okay, but look for a side hustle. I mean, if you want to keep everything within the publishing industry, find what you love to do, whether it's editing, whether it's maybe marketing, doing some areas of marketing, and offer those to other writers who maybe aren't as strong in those areas. And you can find that you can bring in a little extra income there that doesn't necessarily rely just on your books or your stories. And then number 10 is self-care is non-negotiable. Be sure that you are tapping into what's going on with you physically, emotionally, because if that goes, everything else does.
Put us back up there. Fist bump me.
Got you. I got you.
Let me tell you something. I want everyone listening to me for a second here. I hope you wrote those down. Those are spectacular. I am a publisher as well as an author. Mm-hmm. And I give a version of that speech to every one of my authors. And you kept saying they're negative. You were not being negative. You were being honest.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between negativity and setting the bar. I mean, I could talk to you forever. I mean, we don't have that kind of time. Desiree will never invite me back if I say that's it. The BookFest is the rest of the day. It's me and Stephanie talking. But those were so good and so true.
Thank you.
I mean, good job. Now, is that a book?
No, it's just things that I've learned since publishing that were either surprising, that I had to work through myself, that I had to come to terms with and figure out what the positives were in it, and incorporate it into my writing life so that I could use it to my benefit. All of these things can be used to the benefit of the author. So that I just found those to be the top 10. There's so much. I mean, like, there's so much, but those were the top 10 that, especially for new writers. I mean, those are the things that can kind of throw you off guard, and throw you for a loop. And maybe, gosh, I was just on a chat with somebody who said, I think I'm giving up writing. I can't do this. So it can be a very discouraging career. And so I don't want to be discouraging. I want everyone to, like you said, be honest, know what to expect and what might be coming up.
Right. I mean, like, it's not negative to say if it's raining outside to bring an umbrella, and then it's fine. You can walk around outside. You have an umbrella. Right. And you just provided all these people with a spectacular umbrella. I'm swallowing everything that I want to say because I know we're on a time thing, but just know, like, we should have a conversation. But what is your book? Let's promote your book. I mean, that was so good, but we want to, number 11, always promote your book.
Hey, yes, amen. So, I just have a duology that I'll plug a little bit because both of them are BookFest first place award winners. I just found out that Colman Carnival won first place, so I'm very excited about that and very, very proud. And so the Summertime Circus and the Colman Carnival, you can kind of see them behind me here. I do have a trilogy out, Portal Slayers trilogy, and the next series of that, which will be another trilogy that ties into that story world, will be coming out this year. So a lot going on there.
Well, thank you so much. I just loved everything you said because I've lived through it. So you were 100% right. Yeah. That's all I could say.
And if you want to find my books, you can go to my website. That's probably the best place to find me, although they're on Amazon, they're wherever you can find books. But if you go to sldooley.com, you can sign up for my newsletter, which, and that the Torn Parchment newsletter is all for nerds. if you are a nerd of any caliber whatsoever, that's the place for you. We have all kinds of tips and things that we talk. So that'd be a good place to find me. So that's SierraLimaDooley.com.
Oh, I mean, we are just promoting the naval officer's book left and right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for this. I loved it. I expect an email from me because we gotta talk.
Okay, sounds good.
And I mean, best background. I don't know. I know we've got Donna coming up, but you're gonna win best background. So I think it's a trophy.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys.
All right, thank you. I mean, I'm embarrassed of my background. She's never gonna want to talk to me. Look at this background. You at least have a plant.
Yeah, I had to move them from all the various parts of my apartment.
Well, next time I gotta step up my game.
Up next, we've got Wendy Van Camp. Wendy is a poet laureate specializing in astro poetry and science fiction haikus or sci-fi-kus. She's going to be reading from her poetry collection, The Planets, and is also going to discuss the active international community of speculative poets. Hello, Wendy. How are you today?
Hello, Wendy.
Hello, Scott and James. It's good to be here.
Thanks for joining us. And I'm excited to hear this poem from The Planets. The title is already provocative.
Yes, it's poetry inspired by the 9 planets of our solar system. I use their physical characteristics, our historical connection with them, and just a little bit of my own ideas. But anyway, here we go. First one is called Mercury. I circle the sun in spin, orbit, resonance, lonely messenger. The next one is called Venus Impact. Sulfuric air of Venus burns meteors of certain size. Small rocks need not apply. Oceanus. We call our home Earth, part of our short-sighted hubris on a world of water. Saturn's rings. Rings spin their own path within the giant disk. Mind the Cassini gap. And the last one of this set is called Planet Pluto. In the Kuiper Belt, dwarves mingle with comets. Size doesn't matter. Thank you.
That was so good. Now, what is your opinion on Pluto? Because there's all kinds of controversy. Is Pluto in the group, out of the group?
Yes, indeed. The size doesn't matter. That is the reference. Pluto, of course, was considered a full planet back in the day when I was young and in school. So I do think of it as a planet. And then it was downgraded to a dwarf world, rather like the way Circes and some of the other larger asteroids are now considered dwarf worlds. So anyone knows how many planets we have in the solar system now. It's a kind of it's like a ever revolving juggling act. I think eventually Pluto will be renamed a full planet. There's a movement to make it so, and I'm hoping it succeeds. I think there's a lot going for this rather unusual world at the edge of our solar system.
Yeah, I know that the lobbyists for Pluto are constantly in getting.
There's a lot of financial gain on the line.
Right. Yeah, there's all kinds of tax breaks. So it's going to happen. So why the planets? What makes you want to write poetry from the planets?
Well, I always was interested in NASA and the space program. I am old enough to remember seeing Neil Armstrong walk on the moon live. I was a very small child. My father called me in from playing outside, and he says, "You need to see this. You will never, this is like a once in a lifetime event." And so we as a family watched Neil walk on the moon for the first time and heard those famous words. And from that moment forward, I was fascinated with outer space. I dreamed of being an astronaut, but being a 5'1" woman, the chances of me going up in a space shuttle are rather slim. However, it has set me on the course of reading and writing science fiction. I started as a science fiction author. I am a member of SWIFA at this moment, and it got me into speculative poetry. As I was working on my novels and taking my very first steps in publishing, some of my friends kept telling me about speculative poetry since I was a science fiction author. And I kind of dismissed it for a long time. But gradually, I started to learn about it. And I took, by accident, really, a class on how to write sci-fi poems. Literally, I hadn't written a poem in 20 years. But after this workshop, I found that I really liked the form, and I just started writing them as blog posts on my writing blog. And as I wrote them, I would illustrate them because I also am an illustrator and I just wanted something to practice on. Well, after about a year of doing this, a magazine caught sight of them, needed illustrations for their anthology series, and I ended up being their illustrator with my poetry for 8 years. And from that point, it just kept blossoming. And eventually, I discovered speculative poetry, that there's an incredibly large community of speculative poets all over the world. And I joined them, eventually became an officer, and now here I am, co-chair of the poetry committee at SIFA.
So what is speculative poetry? I'm not that.
Well, there are writers who write science fiction and fantasy books, and there are poets that write science fiction and fantasy or horror themed poetry. It could be any form of poetry. It's not a form, it's more a matter of theme. Okay. And out in the world, there are publications that specialize in publishing speculative poems. Sometimes they do it by form. Sometimes it's just anything in general. And a lot of them are the same places that science fiction writers would publish their short stories. We're kind of hand in hand with that community as well. You might have heard of Asimov's or Analog, Worlds of If. All these things, they also take poetry, but it needs to be speculative poetry in genre. So that's kind of where I got my start and where my love is. And I will probably always continue to write speculative poetry. The Planets was my first collection. It was nominated for the Elgin Award for Best Speculative Poetry Book of the Year in 2020 and in 2021. And I have another similar book in the works called Time and Space, which I'm hoping to get out either by the end of this year or early next year. But there's so many places to go as a speculative poet. Of course, there's the SIFWA, which also is for science fiction and fantasy authors. They have just recently accepted speculative poets as of last August. So if you are a speculative poet or you're thinking maybe my work has speculative themes, what do I do with it? SIFWA is a good place to check out. The SFPA, which is the Science Fiction and Fantasy Poetry Association, is a very low-cost entry association of writers who specialize in speculative poetry. They are the ones that host most of the speculative poetry writing awards, such as the Elgin Award, which my book ended up being nominated for. There's also the Riesling for short and long form poetry. And then there's a special award called the Dwarf Star, which is for micro poetry, of which my sci-fi definitely falls into. I have been nominated for a Dwarf Star as well. There's also a third organization which is becoming very popular. It's HWA, or the Horror Writers Association, and they basically sponsor horror genre poetry. Now, horror poetry can be considered speculative, but just in the last decade, they have kind of broken off onto themselves, and they have developed an entire community around them. Their main award is called the Bram Stoker Award, and it's very coveted, really. And I'm hoping within the next year, SIFWA, my organization, we will be having a Nebula Award for speculative poetry as well. We're still working on it. I'm afraid we can't get it done for this year, but by 2025, I hope that it'll be ready. Finally, I just wanted to mention that there are a lot of publications that do accept speculative poetry, such as Asimov, Analog, Starline, Ida the Telescope, Worlds of If, Science Fiction and Fantasy Magazine, Time and Space, and of course, Sci-Fi Kuas, which I've been published in a few times. I just want to point out that all these markets are generally paid markets. We in the speculative poetry community believe in paying our writers.
What? You can get paid for writing?
Amazing, isn't it?
Oh
yes.
But what about exposure?
But anyway, we have a lot of pro-level magazines, but most people at least try to get you a token payment, and we're very welcoming in our community. We want more poets to join us, and it's not quite as cutthroat maybe as the literary scene can prove to be.
Well, thank you so much for teaching us all about this. I didn't know anything about this. Where can people pick up your planet book, and where can we send the letters to get Pluto back to being a planet?
Well, as for Pluto, go ahead and talk to NASA about that. But as for me, you can find me at wendyvancamp.com. That is my portfolio website. I do have a monthly free newsletter, which is at nowastedink.substack.com. On Instagram, I'm at nowastedink. And I do publish a lot of my work as a reprint on Medium. And my account there is @W.Van_Camp, just as my name is spelled on the screen. I hope to see you all out there. It's been wonderful being here at BookFest. I appreciate you having me on board. I know we poets are not always as welcome.
Oh, you're always welcome.
You're a poet, and we know it. That was the best I could do. I don't know. I wish I could have been quicker. Thank you so much for joining us, and we're gonna wrap up with Donna.
This is the title match because Donna's been sitting. I've been watching her in the green room, stewing the whole time. We've been waiting since you talked about how Stephanie was better than her. So now we've got to bring her
wait a
on.
minute. I said her background. Now we're going to see what Donna's background was.
Okay. I got to say, Donna does have a pretty good background. So let me introduce her first. The award-winning author of The Last Magdalene will read a preview from her new book and share anecdotes from the notorious past of the main character. This is Donna D. Conrad. Hey, Donna, how are you today?
I am doing great. How are you?
Pretty good response on the background there.
Oh, thank you, Scott. Posters. They just go on the wall. You can take them down.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah, I think.
You don't think this is? But
you know,
you've got
we all want, we all want Stephanie's room.
I mean, wasn't it beautiful?
Oh, it was incredible. I was just so envious. And plus all of her points, they weren't negative, they were truth.
They were truth. Exactly. But we're here to hear from you, and we're going to hear from your story. And I'm so excited. And you have a perfect background.
Oh, thank you. My 2 books.
Yeah,
out now.
Can't be better than that.
Can't be better. Okay. So I was going to read from the opening of The Last Magdalene. It's about a 2-minute read, if that's okay.
That sounds wonderful.
Okay. I have heard tales of my madness. The village wives bring them to me with requests for potions and charms. They tell me my madness is of Satan. My madness is divine trance, that I take neither food nor drink, for angels sustain me, that I'm a great sorceress, that I raise the dead. Truth and lies tangled in a web of time and man's deceit. Yet I shall try to unravel the threads of my life for you. Though I believe my time had passed, my madness merely delusions found in the realms of the dead. Until one day in early spring, I saw a young woman kneeling before me on the smooth stone floor. I paid her little mind, thinking her an apparition. But then she spoke, sweetly requesting an amulet and my blessing for her marriage. My body ached, and I knew I was still of this world. I reached out to her and did not recognize my own hands, spotted and withered, the skin a transparent sheath. Still, I took her face in my hands and held it close. Despite my heart's desire to be free of this world, the touch of a stranger's flesh brought back a deep yearning for life. Her scent filled my senses, releasing some morsel of the pain that brought me to this cave in southern Gaul. Then I kissed her lips. Her breath mingled with mine, and from that kiss, I was returned to myself. She smiled shyly and hesitated before taking the talisman I offered, asking if I were truly a holy woman, as she believed, or a demon, as the village elders warned. And I knew in that moment I must write the story of my life and of lives greater than my own. For you have been told only half-truths about the man, Yeshua Bar Joseph, he who was crucified on Golgotha in the land known to Rome as Judea. And you have been told only lies about me, Miriam of Bethany, the last Magdalene.
Ooh.
Wow.
And then what happens?
Okay.
And then what happens?
Yeah. Walk us through the rest of the books.
The whole book, the whole thing. Well, as you can kind of tell, this is Miriam as an older woman needing to tell her story, because as we all know, she's kind of been demonized, she's been maligned, she's been sidelined in this story we've heard for 2,000 years. So I wanted to give her voice a chance to be heard once again from her perspective.
What an interesting idea. I mean, where did this come from for you?
It actually came from a Magdalene scholar, Johnny Cozina, who read one of my earlier books and said, you know, you should write a really deep, historically researched, gritty, raw rendition about this woman, Mary Magdalene. And I said, wasn't she in the Bible? And she said, come with me, young lady, and took me to France. And I toured with her to all the sacred sites in southern France. And she introduced me to several other scholars. And the more I learned about this woman from external references, books, the more I just fell in love with her and said, this woman was strong and passionate. She was courageous. She was involved, deeply involved in a pivotal time of history. And yet, I mean, she's mentioned more than any other woman other than Jesus's mother in the New Testament. But once she sees the risen Jesus, they just write her out of the story. And I said, no, that can't be.
Wow. And are you worried about getting on someone else's IP? Do you think anyone will sue you for using the character? No, I'm just kidding.
Not exactly. Well, I don't know. The Raptor's coming back on April 8th. So Jesus is supposed to return on the 8th. My book's released on the 9th. So maybe he's coming back to sue me.
Right, maybe.
It could happen.
No, it'd probably help you. To be honest, that's the kind of...
That'd be great. Oh, yeah. I'll
I would have
timed
it
book for him.
I would have timed it so that my manuscript was due on the 9th.
Yeah, well, yeah. And you don't have to finish it. That's a good idea, but that's not how
No, the book is out. And most people have pre-ordered it already, and I think they're going to receive it on the 8th.
Oh, it's very, very nice.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just such a good idea. And I feel like, you know, like with Wicked, where we hear the different side of the witch's point of view. I think they did that with Alice in Wonderland. There's different ways to do this, but to think of it being through Mary Magdalene, like, good idea.
Thank you. Yes, I have enjoyed it. And it's just book 1. And there's 4 books in the series, the Magdalene Chronicles. So we're going to follow her into Alexandria in Egypt. And then we're going to follow her to southern Gaul. And then we're going to hear her daughter, Sarah's opinion about the whole situation.
So when you come up with an idea like this, how do you know that there's 4 books? Like when does that happen for you?
Well, I originally thought there'd only be 3 because I wanted to do anything sacred to the goddess or the divine feminine is 3, Maiden, Mother, Crone. And then my agent said, oh, no, there's got to be 4 books. You've got to divide this one in 2. And I went, thank you. I just have another book. I kind of appreciate that.
That's perfect. I think that's such a fascinating idea. Who do you think is pre-ordering this book? Like who is your reader? Who's your ultimate reader?
I think that probably my ultimate reader is someone who wants to hear the voice of women that have been marginalized. That's what I write about. After this series, there's another series of another woman that's been kind of written out of history. So I think a lot of women and men who have begun to question a pretty male-dominated story might be interested in hearing what did these people look like from a woman's perspective, and what did the times look like, and what did women do during this time? Because Rome was so oppressive. It had taken over Judea. Their money wasn't worth anything. They were taxed beyond belief, and they were responding to a prophecy that a king and queen would arise and throw out Rome and establish 1,000 years of peace. And that is something that is so remarkable. And I would hope people want to read about these people's day-to-day lives and how did they get through.
Right. Yeah, I think historical fiction is something that people love. It's really a popular idea. And this was just good job. You know what?
Thank you.
You may not have the best background, but you've got some background. You did some work in your background. So
this is heavy on the historical,
right,
and creative on the fiction, because there's like 18 months of research going to Hebraic and Christian and Egyptian sources all over, because you have to kind of triangulate at this time because Judea was a backwater in the 1st century.
Well, where can people find your book? And, when is the world ending? You're saying tomorrow? So
No. The rapture is supposed to be on the 8th. So pre-order the book. Pre-order the book now. It's released on the 9th, on April 9th. And people can go to my website, which is really tough. Get out a pen. DonnaConrad.com. And, you go. And sign up. Yeah, you got it. Sign up on the website and you'll see where I teach, where I'll be signing books, and more about the rest of the series as it comes out.
Wow. Thank you so much. I love your spirit. And thanks for wrapping the show up for us.
Yeah, thank you, Donna.
It was so good.
You are so welcome. And thank you. I've been watching you guys all day. Just keep going. Okay.
Oh,
right.
I kicked her off early. Sorry, Donna, but we heard you.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Do you think that we should go? Okay, never mind. We're going to do it. I was going to say, let's go ahead and move on to the announcements. So, hey, Desiree.
Hey, guys. A little itchy on the button there, huh, James? Like,
yeah, my bad.
It's okay. It's okay. I think it's funny. It's all of a sudden, boom, they're gone.
Yeah.
I was going to say to Scott, do you know that you and Donna have something in common? You're going to be rubbing shoulders together very, very soon.
Oh, really?
Because Donna is going to be at the LA Times Festival of Books signing her book in booth number 153 in the Gold Zone, as are you.
Yes, I'm so excited. I can't wait. Now, the one person I picked out of everyone to say their background wasn't good, and I'm going to have to see her in 2 weeks. I don't think she's going to forgive me.
She is definitely not going to forgive you.
That's karma right there for sure.
All right, Scott, I got to ask about your book. Your books. I mean, I know you've got more than one book, and I think you've got Moonlighting hanging out there in the background. You can tell us really quick about that, as well as you've got a forthcoming book that I think people are going to be dying to learn about.
Yeah, my new book, which I will have in 2 weeks. That'll be the first time anyone in the world can get it. It actually doesn't come out till June, but we rushed it to print, and amazingly, we made it. So if you come out to the LA Times Fest, you can be one of the first 20 people in the world to get a look at the last decade of cinema, which covers 55 movies from the 90s. There's 25 long essays and then 30 short essays on not what I say is my favorite movies from the 90s, but movies that sort of show how times have changed and how the art of cinema, in my opinion, is slipping away.
And why do you think that it's slipping? What happened? What changed?
Well, I think that we just stopped making grown-up movies and everyone sort of got fearful. And I was so thinking about that from all the way back to our first guy, Michael, where he talked about fear. And, you know, I think right now studios are afraid to rock the boat with films. And in the 90s, anything went. And so there was such creativity.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see where things will go, because I think people do. They crave that. They crave that mystique, and it's getting so monotonous recently with a lot of the films.
I know, and I watched 160 movies for research of the book. I mean, what Donna is there going to France or, you know, reading the Bible, and I was...
You went to the movie theater.
Yeah, I watched movies. I guess we all had our own COVID. But, you know, I think it just really moved me, and it's probably my most personal book. Most of my books, I've sort of stayed back and just covered the event, but a lot of me slips out in this book, I feel like.
It is your opus, and it is magnificent. I can't wait for it to be out. And I thank you for being at the LA Times Festival of Books. In case people are wondering, what is this? The LA Times Festival of Books. It is the largest book festival, so they claim, that's in person. And it happens on the USC campus. And it's the 20th and the 21st of April. If anybody is in the Southern California area, it's something to check out.